Night School by Moran. Trent pulled the Honda into his parking space, killed the headlights, and turned off the ignition. The tiny clock on his dash read 3:30 a.m., 3 hours early for work. Despite the hour, he felt particularly spry and awake. After he and Angie's lengthy shouting match the previous evening, he had exiled himself to the sofa. The couch was comfortable enough, but his surging adrenaline prevented him from sleeping. Wound up and agitated, he decided to begin his morning workout a little early. Stepping from the car, he exhaled deep of the crisp morning air. A brief snowstorm had passed through the previous night, dusting the town in an inch of fluffy white. Not enough to cancel school, though. Ahead, the sprawling wings of the Hutchinson High School gripped the landscape like a giant tick. A geometrical blemish on the otherwise pristine forest landscape, the new school represented the town's mulish disregard of local history. Not only had the parcel, along with the surrounding undeveloped acreage, been tribal lands, but it also served as a site of 2 battles of the American Revolution. When the area was proposed as the site for the new high school, it had caused quite a ruckus. As a teacher with a doctorate in history, Trent had been asked to testify on behalf of the local historical society. However, his pleas were ignored, and the heart of the site was dozed under in the name of progress. He stuffed his keys and cell phone into his jogging jacket and set off toward the woods. Although the school sported a state-of-the-art track, he had always preferred the natural solitude of the 1.5-mile cross-country trail. Meandering through the surrounding forest, it offered a wonderful chance to escape from the outside world. An opulent full moon presided over the winter sky, flooding the landscape with its incorporeal blue luminance. Should be able to see, he reasoned as he stepped onto the path. Trent took a moment to stretch before plunging into the narrow trail. With the snow crunching beneath his sneakers, he jogged through the woods. Under the canopy of skeletal branches that intermingled like craggy fingers, he relished the feel of the frigid air as it caressed his bare face and burned his lungs. Each step brought him closer to peace, and soon the tiny flame of anger he had harbored from the previous evening had been extinguished. He felt invigorated, alive. Around him, the world became a blur, and the only sounds he could hear were his own strong pulse and the whoosh-whoosh of the wind through his ears. As he rounded the first bend, he noticed something lying in the path ahead. Slowing his pace, he felt his energy drained by another emotion, fear. What the hell is that, he wondered as he crept closer. Concealed in the thick shadow of an oak, the obscured lump appeared to be an animal. Moonlight illuminated a small section of the object, revealing brown hair. He first thought it to be a deer. Hunting season was open, and it was conceivable that the unfortunate animal had been wounded and escaped only to die later. Drawing closer, he made another discovery. Blood. Sweet Christ, he muttered as he studied the ground. Bright red droplets stippled the earth and in some instances dribbled from the branches of low-hanging boughs. The entire pathway had been stained crimson, and the sweet tang of gore hung heavily in the air. Trent didn't want to proceed, but morbid curiosity attracted him like a magnet. Navigating through the puddles, he approached the body. Oh shit, he spat as he stumbled backward. It wasn't a deer, but a human being. The young woman was splayed across the pathway, her nightdress shredded and drenched in blood. Something had ripped out her throat, and the ragged void still dripped with crimson. Her rib cage had been cracked open as well, and the jagged tips of ribs jutted like teeth from the edge of the wound. An incision in her abdomen leaked glistening viscera onto the snowy earth. 2 wide blue eyes stared up at the heavens through a thick mask of red. Blood-stained teeth shimmered, clenched and fully exposed through curled lips. Despite the death grimace, Trent recognized the young woman. Sarah Crowley, senior and student council president. Crippled with shock, he stumbled backwards, nearly tripping over a fallen limb. What could have killed her? Was it an animal? And what was she doing in the woods in the first place? The questions dissipated as he noticed another important detail. The body still steamed. The blood had not yet frozen. Sarah had been killed recently. Very recently. Oh, dear God, Trent whimpered as he backed against a tree for cover. The killer could still be in the woods with him. Looking around, he saw no signs of a predator, man or animal. What the hell? Trent stared at the snow and blood-covered earth surrounding the body. The only tracks surrounding the body were his. With the exception of his footprints, there wasn't another track as far as he could see. How the hell could something kill the girl and not leave a single track? With trembling hands, he reached into his pocket and fished for his cell phone. The phone went off, its obnoxious, cheerful ring startling a scream out of him. Who? He unfolded it and checked the screen. The caller ID read S. Crowley. Crouching beside the mammoth oak, he clicked the speak button. Hello? crackling and static, then something beneath. "Hello?" he asked again, aware of the tears gathering behind his lids. "Mr. Phillips, Trent," the soft feminine voice echoed and ebbed. "Speak up, I can't." Laughter, distant and cruel. "They're pissed, Trent. Oh, God damn me, they're pissed." "Who's pissed? Who is this?" Again the laughter. Trent felt an icy chill rip up his spine. "They're coming, Trent. They can see you." "What are you talking about? Tell me who this is or I'm going to hang up." "Mr. Phillips, it's me, Sarah Crowley." "What?" He turned and looked at the body. Sarah's corpse stared at him, its eyes wide, its mouth now twisted into an awful grin. Trent screamed as the cell phone tumbled from his hand. What in the hell is going on? He picked up the phone, blew the snow off it, and dialed emergency. The phone hissed and popped, then silence. "Hello?" A scream erupted from the tiny speaker with uncanny volume and clarity. Throwing the phone, he watched as it skidded across the snowy path before disappearing into the woods. Disjointed thoughts flittered in his brain, as aimless and fleeting as moths in a porch light. Although invigorated moments before, he felt sapped, drained of initiative. Cowering behind the tree, he scanned the skeletal forest for signs of movement. Ahead, a branch cracked. To his right, snow sprinkled from a low-hanging bough. To his left, the girl's face had changed again. Wild-eyed, she stared down the pathway from which he'd come. Get up and run. Summoning the energy, he stood and turned back toward the parking lot. He took 2 steps before he stopped. Another set of footprints had joined his in the snow. They veered from the path just a few yards from where he stood. From the woods, the phone cackled. "They're here! Run!" Trent sprung to his feet, hurtled over the body, and ran down the path. An unnatural wind whipped up in protest, rattling the branches and stirring up a cloud of snow. He looked back and whined as, for a split second, the snow took a shape. Or rather, many shapes. Dozens of rotted, shambling figures pursued before the wind scattered their tenuous forms like smoke. Whimpering, he continued his flight. The crisp air burned his throat and shocked his lungs as he sprinted down the narrow path. He realized the distance that separated him from the path's exit, and as his legs and arms pumped, he paid no heed to the branches that slapped at his face and the intense cramp that ripped through his side. He could feel the darkness behind him as it nipped at his heels, threatening to consume him body and soul. Tears flowing from his eyes, freezing to his cheeks like tiny diamonds, he pushed his body to the limit. Around him, the forest darkened as the trees secreted a thick, inky blackness that blotted out the moonlight. Just ahead, a tiny bright speck marked the end of the trail. "Where are you going, Trent? Stay with us." He looked down to see his cell phone sitting in the middle of the trail. "Shut up!" he screamed as he stepped over it. His chest tightened, and Trent prayed that it was his chilled lungs and not his heart. Although he was in good shape for his age, he had never pushed himself so hard. Hand clutching his chest, he burst from the trail. It emptied out behind the school and several hundred yards away from the parking lot. Slowing to catch his breath, Trent chanced to glance behind him. "Oh, God," he muttered. Their craggy branches crackling like kindling, the trees trembled amidst the advancing tide of darkness. From just beyond the dark pit that marked the exit to the trail, Sarah Crowley's warped voice wailed, "You can't run forever, Trent." Feet slipping on the powdery snow, he stumbled toward the school. Fishing his keychain from his pocket, he readied the key to the exterior doors and held it extended before him. Sarah continued to wail, her voice mingling with the cacophony of cracking timber, marching footsteps, and the tortured cries of the dead. He whimpered as he struggled to guide his key into the lock. The ring rattled in his trembling hand as the tip skidded away from the hole. "Come on," he whined as a tear dripped onto the back of his hand. With a click, the key penetrated the lock. A quick twist, and it disengaged. Thank God! Stepping inside, he relocked the door before slamming it shut behind him. He didn't know if the glass and steel could keep out the pursuing spirits, but he felt better now that he was inside. Trent hustled from the doors and made his way into the deep gloom of the hallways. He would have to try to make it to the main office and use the phone to call for help. And what will you tell them? They'll think you're crazy. Well, he could start with the murdered girl. The rest he would probably gloss over. He felt along the rows of lockers as he navigated his way through the labyrinthine corridors. The intermittent glow of the exit signs offered the only reprieve from the darkness. Wonder when the janitors get here, he thought as he rounded the corner to the north corridor. Whistling. The unfamiliar melody came from somewhere ahead. Peering through the gloom, he could just make out a form at the hallway's end. Trent hugged the wall as he slipped further down the corridor. Beneath the reddish glow of an exit sign, one of the janitors labored. The lithe silhouette pushed and pulled at the handle of a mop. Relief mending his shattered nerve, Trent stepped into the center of the hallway. Hello? The janitor continued to whistle and clean. Although his back was to Trent, he recognized the man as Bob Cambridge, the head custodian. Bob? Trent called again. The whistling stopped. Who's there? Bob, it's me, Trent Phillips. Listen, you have to... Don't be coming this way, Mr. Phillips. There's quite a mess over here. Mess? What do you mean? His foot slipped, and Trent grabbed a nearby locker to keep his balance. Blood. Everywhere. Just feet from the lit corner, Trent could see it now. Smatterings of gore dotted the walls and dripped from the ceiling. A thick pool coagulated in the center of the hall. Sweet Christ! It's drying already. Must be the heat in the building. Trent didn't answer. He only stared at the dark patches on the janitor's sleeves, his pant legs, and his shoulders. You killed her, he muttered as he backed away. What's that, boy? Sarah Crowley, you killed her. Bob wheeled. Now, how the fuck could I have done that? I'm dead. Trent screamed. The old man's throat had been opened from ear to ear. The severed end of his windpipe protruded from the slick gash. Wrinkled flesh buckled and split like a grisly second mouth. Trent turned and fled. Teach me to come to work early, Bob called. Stumbling blindly, Trent collided with a glass wall. The office, he realized as he felt for the door. Slick fingers squealed as they dragged against the glass in search of the handle. Finally, they found purchase. He pulled. The door opened. Trent scrambled inside and shut the door behind him. With the exception of the soft thrum of the computers, the spacious office was silent. Using the reception desk for support, he stood. Beside him, a computer screen crackled to life, flooding the room with bluish light. Bright red text filled the screen. We see you. Trent looked up. Outside, dozens of gray, rotted faces pressed against the glass as the spirits crowded to peer inside. The skeletal visages rendered semi-transparent in the harsh blue light, they shoved and pushed at each other. They had gotten inside. What do you want from me? Trent shrieked as he backed down the short hallway that led to the principal's office. There was nowhere else to go. He was trapped. Trying the doors, he found one unlocked. Sarah Crowley had joined the pack of phantoms. Grievous wounds still weeping, she pressed her body against the glass. Lips shimmering with a fresh coat of blood, she wailed, You'll be with us soon, Trent. Trent ignored her as he turned the handle and spilled into the office. Light, warm and comforting, blinded him. Kicking the door shut, Trent scrambled across the carpeted floor until his back collided with the desk. Good morning, Trent. Jesus, he spat. Roger Kramer sat behind the desk, his face ashen, his sparse hair disheveled. Splotches of crimson speckled his dress shirt and soaked his tie. 4 blood-encrusted scratches ran from his forehead to his stubbly chin. You're dead too, Trent said as he stood and backed away from the principal. I'm not dead. Not yet, anyway. Outside, something crashed. Listen to me, Trent explained. You need to call the police. I found Sarah Crowley in the woods. She's dead, and there are these things... Kramer's eyes narrowed, nearly disappearing into the dark, puffy sockets. You saw her too? On the jogging trail. They must have moved her. You've seen them? Kramer laughed. Seen them? Trent, I think I'm the one who woke them. What are you talking about, Roger? Studying his boss's features, Trent saw the lunacy in the man's eyes. I got here early, figured I could hide the body in the woods before anyone got here. It would take the cops days to find her. Trent edged away from the desk. What body, Roger? Sarah's. She was pregnant, and she wouldn't get rid of it. What was I going to do, Trent? Sure as hell couldn't let her have it. My life would be over. Oh, no, Roger, what did you do? Honestly, I don't know why the hell everyone's here so early. First that drunk of a janitor showed up, now you. Trent wasn't listening. Instead, he watched the black and white security monitor that played behind the principal's desk. Playing in fast motion, the tape showed Roger Kramer as he dragged the lifeless body of Sarah Crowley from his car. As Bob Cambridge's beat-up sedan pulled up into the picture, Roger dropped the body and fished a knife from the trunk. Trent turned away as Roger rushed the helpless old man. Another crash from the main office, the sound of shattering glass. Inside the room, the temperature dropped, and Trent watched as his breath rose in smoky plumes. Reaching behind him, he felt for the door. Roger stood. In his hand, he held the same bloody hunting knife he had killed Bob with. You realize, Trent, that I can't let you go. Trent spun, grabbed the handle. Leaping from behind his desk, Roger attacked. Forced against the door, Trent screamed as Kramer's knife bit deep into the small of his back. Searing pain radiated from the wound as the tip of the blade broke free just below his sternum. With the grind of metal on bone, his legs went numb, and he dropped to the floor. Trent crumbled as Roger stabbed him again and again. Arcs of blood spattered the walls and sprayed his face. Chest heaving, his face dripping with rivulets of blood and sweat, the principal considered his victim. I'm so sorry, Trent. Trent only grinned. The door of the office exploded inward with a shower of plaster and wood. They had arrived to deal their violent penance. "Get away from me!" Roger shouted as he cowered in the corner. Howling in triumph, the restless spirits advanced, and Trent led the charge.